Can you explain to us about the differences within the crowds?
DJing abroad is very, very different. I find that people aren't so shy to get on the dance floor. They don't worry about the music too much. It doesn't really matter what you play, just as long as you like it yourself and you're feeling it and you know that the crowd are feeling it. So, and you can see that they're having a good time anyway. I think there'd be something seriously wrong if the crowds totally disappeared in a club abroad.
Are British crowds difficult to please?
British crowds are very hard to please. It's really hard to get people on the dance floor. Even if you play probably the most loved song at the moment, they still don't want to get up on the dance floor because there's not enough people in the clubs. Whereas, say in somewhere like Italy, I played in Milan not so long ago, and sometimes they don't even bother buying a drink, they just get in the club and go on the dance floor because that's what the clubs are all about, dancing, listening to the music.
Do you find that your tunes go down better with one particular sex? Is there music for girls and a music for boys, or is it pretty general?
No, I mean if you're in a club and say there's more girls, then you might play a little bit more vocal, or yeah, it depends where you're playing and what the crowd is. It really does, yeah.
How much control do you have over the music that you play in clubs?
I've never been asked to play something in a club. I've always played my own stuff in a club. I've never been told what to play. But I do know of a couple of people who, once they've got to the club with their own record, have been told, right, there's a box, play stuff out of that box because we don't know what you've brought, we don't know what other DJs are playing. So I do know it has happened, but it's not happened to me.
Garage music is very fast and furious, and it's very quick. The records aren't very long. Probably the longest record is about 5 minutes. So you haven't really got the time to mess around with the sounds. I mean, sometimes you can. It depends what records you're playing. But half the time you have to kind of you mess around with the crossfader, a bit of chopping, not so much blending because of the music.
Do you think your success has come down to reading the audience?
Most definitely. Obviously, you know, buying music, you know, that obviously you're going to like, but at the same time thinking about the club that you're playing at. So obviously, you know, I play obviously outside of where I live as well, so you kind of read the crowd and see if you like to play obviously tough or a bit vocally. So that is the main thing about DJing. You've got to be able to read your crowd because at the end of the day they want to dance, and obviously if you play to yourself then people are not going to really respect that. They're not going to really dance because you're not, you know, creating a vibe, you know, a mood that they're going to be wanting to dance to basically. So that's like the main thing about DJing, is trying to read the crowd and knowing the crowd. So.
How would I judge the reaction of a crowd? I think on judging the reaction of a crowd, I think it's very important to actually look at you know, the crowd that are out in front of you, because at the end of the day, you're the DJ and they are expecting you to get them going basically, and also they are the people paying to see you, you know, to hear you perform. So I think it's very important for you to be playing to the crowd. In a club that can be difficult because, you know, you can get carried away with your mixing and, you know, I've got to get this record right and that record right. But I think it's not as important that you get your mixing, for example, right than it is for the crowd to be having a good time. So I think it's always valuable to, you know, as you're mixing, you know, just glance across at the crowd, see what they're doing. If you play a record and people jump up to it, what you really need to do is to try and find something that's going to follow on that and keep it going. But you might find you keep it going for a while and then people begin to walk away from the floor. So find something new. You know, this is my advice. Don't sort of think, oh, this is great, you know, oh yeah, I love all this music and, you know, I'm wicked, because it's very easy to do that. Especially when you come on after another DJ and the crowd's already there jumping and, you know, you think, yeah, this is me. But a good DJ should be able to, in my opinion, should be able to go into a party or a club with 10 people and get them dancing. To me, that's what I would look for, not really, you know, someone who's just come on after a big DJ or a warm-up DJ and yeah, you know, that's why you need warm-up DJs, to actually get people going, but I think you need to make sure you keep the baton going, you know.
If you didn't know the club that you were playing at, how would you read the crowd?
If you've been playing for a long time and you've got an idea of how to play to a crowd generally. So you kind of like, it's just instinct really. You know, I mean, normally when I go to a club and I may talk to a DJ and ask him, you know, what kind of, you know, things will go down well. And then when I start playing, I'll just kind of like pick out the records that, you know, kind of I think what will go well, try them out, and then obviously if it's going well, then you can kind of build upon that type of music that you're playing. Otherwise, it's just, you know, just basically just trying out things. So that's the main thing.
What's the difference between playing to a crowd in Ibiza as to playing to a crowd back at home?
There wasn't that much difference because I was booked to play the style of music that I normally play, but in terms of the crowd, there's, you know, in Ayia Napa it's very English based, whereas in Ibiza it's quite sort of European. You get a mix of people going out there.
How can you tell if the crowd's loving it?
You can just tell with their expression, you know, their body movement. Normally, like with vocal tracks, people seem to, you know, be more into it. They'll sing along. You can just tell that, you know, they're smiling, you know, they're enjoying themselves. So.
How did you get the opportunity to become a resident at the Ministry of Sound?
It basically came around because a friend of mine does the bookings for them.
Generally, it's very segregated, like the house clubbers and the garage clubbers.
Yeah, very much segregated. It's two completely different scenes. Even down to the clothes people wear, it's completely different.
Do you have to dress differently for the different types of music?
Sometimes if I'm playing garage music, and it depends what club it is as well, I'll probably go in trainers and maybe my jeans or something a bit casual, but I do dress up as well. But to play at a house club, I do dress up a lot more.
You guys come together as a package, the Outsiders. Can you tell us a bit about how that came about?
Well, basically we began working together because the guy who signed these records up actually gave me a room of my own in a London club, Imperial Gardens, and I used to have to organise all the DJs, and Luke, living in my town, me knowing he's a DJ, got him involved, and he started playing sets there, and then I liked what he was playing and said, would you like to play with me? So that means you play back to back, so he'd play one record, I'd play the next, and we'd do the whole hour like that, back to back. And from that we progressed to thinking about producing music together because our styles were the same.
It's very difficult to do back-to-back, more so than planning, because you can sit at home for hours practicing an hour set, and get everything spot on, so all the bars are dropping in at the right points, and you're mixing smooth, and you know the drops and the changes in the record. But when you play back-to-back, it's very much ad-lib sort of thing, you know, it's very much off the cuff to what record you're going to play next, depending on what style of music's being played previous. It works well with a crowd, because there's a lot of crowd interaction with garage especially, and playing back to back it's more of a firing, because you're playing tunes quicker, you know, because garage you play tunes a lot quicker than you would with house. There's a lot of cuts and chops and crowd pleasing.
It becomes a bit competitive as well, doesn't it? When you're playing back to back, it becomes a bit competitive in the sense of if Luke did a good mix and he got a brilliant reaction, I'd be like, right, no, I've got a bet of that sort of thing, and now if you don't, it's like, oh no, and then, you know.
A bit more pressure.
Yeah, but in a good way, good for us, good for them as the crowd.